BauVolution, where construction meets innovation.
BauVolution. Let's build the future together.
Have you ever thought about this, like when you're using these really powerful AI text generators, with all the GPTs and stuff, but sometimes you just don't get quite the results you were hoping for.
Yeah, for sure.
The output is, okay, but it's not great.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of that old saying that, often the problem isn't the tool, it's how we're using it.
Yeah, absolutely. These AI models are phenomenal, but getting truly insightful results for you often boils down to how you instruct them. It's less about waving a magic wand and more about learning a skill.
It really is. It's a skill, and that's exactly what we're diving deep into today with this fantastic article, Kai Prompts in 6 Written from BauVolution. It's like a crash course in becoming an AI whisperer.
Nice.
We're break down this really straightforward 6-step method, and it's designed to help you level up your AI game without getting bogged down in all the technical jargon.
That's good.
So yeah, today we're just going to use KI as it's used in the article to refer to künstliche Intelligenz, or AI as we know it.
Perfect.
So our mission today in this deep dive is really clear-cut. We want to understand these 6 steps and how they can help you unlock way better outputs from AI models. The article actually goes into some interesting experiments where they test out different prompting approaches, and the effect on the results is huge. So we'll definitely be getting into that so you can see how this actually plays out in the real world.
For sure.
Okay, so let's unpack this, starting with step number 1, defining the AI's role. And this might sound kind of obvious at first, but it's basically about telling the AI who it should be in this particular interaction.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you meet someone for the first time, you introduce yourself.
Right.
You're setting the tone, you're kind of setting expectations.
Exactly, you're setting the stage.
So for your AI interactions, who are you asking it to be?
Yeah, and what's so fascinating here is that you're actually tapping into a psychological principle by assigning a specific role. You're priming the AI's mindset. And by priming, you're basically setting the AI's cognitive state. You're activating certain parts of its vast knowledge base, making it more likely to access and use that information effectively in its response to you.
I see. So it's not just a blank slate. You're giving it some direction.
Exactly. And the article makes this fantastic point that we should really think of the AI as a chat partner. It's not just this database you're querying. It's actually engaging in a dialogue with you.
Right. It's a collaborative process.
Exactly. And defining that conversational role is super important in order for you to get the most out of that interaction.
Right.
So the article gives this really clear example of asking an AI to handle as Bundesgesundheitsminister und schreibe einen Python-Code für eine Login-Seite. So basically asking it to act as the federal minister of health and write Python code for a login page versus asking it as a programmer.
Right. And the results of that little experiment were pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
The article mentions that the health minister role only managed to generate some very basic code.
Yeah, rudimentary.
Whereas a programmer role actually produced much more detailed code, even going as far as explaining how it would connect to a database.
Right. It's much more comprehensive.
Yeah. So I think what we can learn from that is that defining who the AI should be actually changes what it can do. It's not just about getting the right tone of voice, but it's actually unlocking certain skills or areas of expertise within the AI.
Absolutely. And that example clearly shows you how the AI's understanding and approach are heavily influenced by the role you give it. And, the article also provides another really practical example that you might find useful. It talks about preparing a presentation on Hochwasser, which is flooding.
Right.
And they suggest assigning the AI the role of Du bist ein Wissenschaftler mit Expertise und umfassender Erfahrung in Meteorologie, Geologie und Krisenmanagement. So basically, you are a scientist with expertise and comprehensive experience in meteorology, geology, and crisis management. So right from the get-go, you're setting the expectation for a really knowledgeable and authoritative response.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense if you want a presentation that's really grounded in scientific data.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on to step 2, establishing context. And now that you've told the AI who it is, you need to tell it where it is, metaphorically speaking, of course, in relation to your current needs.
Yeah, and context is crucial here. It grounds the AI and makes its responses relevant to your specific situation.
Okay.
And the article uses this wonderful analogy that I think will really resonate with you. They compare the AI to a child standing in a big square with different paths leading off in various directions and all these different sources of information.
I love that image. That's really helpful.
Yeah, so essentially your job is to precisely define the AI's location within that square. Within its assigned role, you need to provide clarifying information that helps it navigate that vast knowledge base effectively for your query.
Right, so it's about giving it the right landmarks to find its way around.
Exactly. And you can think of it as adding layers to the initial role for your benefit. If the AI is a scientist and you specify, du befindest dich zur heutigen Zeit in Deutschland, you are currently in Germany, in the context of the flooding presentation, that immediately focuses its knowledge and the relevance of its potential data sources.
Right, that context really helps narrow things down and keep the information targeted.
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on to step 3, which is all about defining the goal.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty straightforward, but you'd be surprised how often we kind of skip over this crucial step
It's so true.
in our own prompting. So
Yeah.
before you even start crafting those detailed prompts, it's essential to have a crystal clear objective for the conversation.
Yeah.
What do you actually want the AI to do for you or provide for you?
Yeah.
A clear goal acts as this guiding star for the entire interaction, making sure that you get what you need.
Absolutely. And the article introduces this method of using a clear intention statement. And it's basically about explicitly telling your chat partner, the AI, what you expect from it. It just makes things super clear for both of you.
Right, it's like setting the agenda for the conversation.
Exactly. And for the Hochwasser example, a good intention statement could be, Ich möchte bitte Informationen über Flutereignisse der letzten 5 Jahre erhalten. So, I would like to receive information about flooding events of the last 5 years.
Straight to the point.
It tells the AI exactly what you're looking for, which makes the output that much more likely to be relevant and useful to you.
Awesome. So we're building a really solid foundation here for effective AI interactions.
For sure.
Step 4 is all about setting constraints, or as the article calls it, Maßgaben. And this is where you get a bit more specific about what you want the AI to consider or not consider for this particular task.
Yeah, this step really refines the search space for the AI,
Yeah.
Ensuring that it focuses on what's truly important for you. And the article makes a clever connection here to pedagogy. You know how teachers often set specific parameters for assignments? It's kind of like that.
I see. So it's about setting boundaries.
Exactly. It's about providing those clear guidelines, telling the AI what to include, berücksichtige live, or what to exclude. Beziehe nicht abis mit ein. It's about directing the AI's attention to the most pertinent information for your specific needs.
Okay, so it's really about focusing the AI's energy.
Precisely. And to continue with our Hochwasser example, a relevant constraint could be, verwende statistische Daten und aktuelle Quellen aus den letzten 5 Jahren. So basically, use statistical data and current sources from the last 5 years.
Right, so you're making sure that the information you receive is both up-to-date and evidence-based.
Exactly, and you can see how this builds on the previous steps.
Yeah.
You're gradually narrowing the AI's focus to provide the most relevant output for you.
It's like a funnel. You're starting broad and getting more and more specific. Okay, awesome. So now on to step 5. Identifying the audience, or as the article calls it, Zielgroup. And this is about considering who the AI is ultimately working for and who will be using the information it helps you create.
Yeah, this is critical for ensuring that the output is actually useful and digestible for the intended recipients.
Right, because one size doesn't fit all.
Exactly, and the article highlights this perfectly. They talk about the difference between writing a report on flood disasters for elementary school students versus a group of experts in hydrology.
Yeah, huge difference.
The language, the level of detail, the overall focus would need to be completely different.
Absolutely.
And it's your job to guide the AI accordingly.
So you need to tell the AI who it's writing for, essentially.
Yeah. And ideally, how it should adapt its writing style to suit that audience.
So in our ongoing Hochwasser scenario, if your target audience is elementary school students, the prompt could include something like, Schreibe es in einfacher deutscher Sprache für Grundschüler. So write in simple German for elementary school students.
Yeah.
This ensures that the language and the explanations are age appropriate, making the information accessible to those young learners.
Yeah, and you can see how each of these steps kind of interlocks. They work together to guide the AI toward a very specific outcome.
It's like a recipe. You're adding ingredients one by one.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're on to the final step of the core 6 steps, specifying the output format, or ASCII. And I think we've all been there, where you ask an AI for something, and it gives you something, but it's not quite in the format that you were expecting or needing.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
You might be expecting like a detailed report and you get a short paragraph, or you need a bulleted list and you get a big chunk of text.
Right. The AI isn't a mind reader. It needs very clear instructions on how to present the information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this step is all about telling the AI exactly how you want the results formatted, whether it's bullet points, prose, a table with specific columns and rows, or a maximum length in characters. You're really taking control of the final deliverable.
Absolutely. And the article gives some great examples of what you can do, like asking for no lists or only flowing text, setting a specific character limit for a tweet, or really getting into the nitty-gritty of how you want a table structured.
Yeah.
Defining the exact number of columns and rows and what each one should be labeled. This level of detail ensures that the AI delivers what you actually need in a usable format.
Right. It takes away the guesswork for the AI.
Exactly. And for our Hochwasser presentation for the elementary school kids, the article suggests using a bulleted list divided into groups of 5. So the prompt would be something like, Gib mir bitte das Ergebnis als Aufzählung. Teile bitte die Aufzählungen auf zu Gruppen von je 5 Stück. Which translates to, please give me the result as a list. Please divide the lists into groups of 5 each.
Perfect for keeping the slides concise and easy for those young learners to grasp. Okay, so we've covered the core 6 steps, which you can start implementing right away. But the article also brings up this optional but really valuable 7th step, which is defining work steps, or Arbeitsschritt, and the concept of chain of thought prompting, or COT prompting.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, and it can be super helpful when you're dealing with more complex tasks where a single prompt might not be enough.
Right. It's like breaking down a big project into smaller chunks.
Exactly. And you can either break down the prompting itself into multiple sequential steps, or you can instruct the AI within a single prompt on how to approach the task in a step-by-step manner, guiding its thought process, essentially.
Okay, and this leads us to the idea of chain of thought prompting, which I know has been getting a lot of attention lately. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So basically, chain of thought prompting is where you ask the AI model to actually describe its reasoning process as it works toward an answer.
Okay, so instead of just getting the answer, you see how it got there.
Exactly. And this can lead to some really significant improvements in the accuracy and the quality of the results. It allows you to kind of look under the hood and see how the AI arrived at its conclusion.
That makes sense. So it's not just a black box anymore.
And there was this foundational study by Wei and Zhu back in 2022 that really highlighted the power of this approach. And it showed that chain of thought prompting could lead to some pretty dramatic improvements in performance across a wide range of tasks.
Wow, that's really impressive. So you're not just getting answers, you're also getting insights into how the AI thinks.
Exactly. And the article provides some helpful examples of SIG-all prompts that you can use, like Überlege bitte schrittweise zu dem Ergebnis zu gelangen, which is, please think step by step to arrive at the result, or Gebe dir schrittweise vor und erkläre deine Schritte, which means proceed step by step and explain your steps. These prompts encourage the AI to articulate its thought process, making its reasoning transparent for you.
That's really cool. So it's like having a window into the AI's mind. Okay, so we've got the 6 core steps and this really interesting optional step of chain of thought prompting. But the article doesn't stop there. It goes on to describe 4 experiments they did using ChatGPT-4 to see how these principles play out in real-world scenarios. So let's dive into those.
Yeah, these experiments provide some really valuable insights into how applying different prompting strategies can affect the results you get.
Right, so it's not just theory, it's actually putting it into practice.
Exactly. And experiment 1 involved inputting each of our Hochwasser prompts one at a time in sequence.
And the result was really interesting. It led to a well-structured output divided into 3 logical groups of 5 bullet points each.
And what's fascinating is that the AI seemed to infer this logical flow. There was an introduction and awareness section, some background information, and then a conclusion and appeal, even though we didn't explicitly request that structure.
It was able to kind of piece together the narrative based on those individual prompts.
Exactly, which suggests that a step-by-step approach can guide the AI towards a more coherent and organized response.
Okay, that's really cool. So it's not just about giving instructions, it's also about guiding the AI's storytelling, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have experiment 2, where they took all those prompts and combined them into a single query.
Right.
And I imagine that led to some different outcomes. And what were the key differences there?
Yeah, so the output in experiment 2 differed in a few interesting ways. It still provided information in groups of 5 bullet points, but there were only 2 groups, so 10 points total instead of the 15 we got in the first experiment.
Okay.
It also included topic headings for each group, which we didn't have in Experiment 1. And while the content itself was broader and more concrete, the word choices weren't as well suited for an elementary school audience, and the overall flow felt less coherent.
I see. So it's almost like overwhelming the AI with a long list of instructions all at once
Yeah.
actually diluted the impact of those individual prompts.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's like with humans, if you give someone a really long and complicated instruction all at once, it can be hard to process and prioritize everything.
Absolutely. So breaking down instructions might actually lead to more focused and accurate results than just throwing everything at the AI at once.
Exactly. And this highlights the value of that structured step-by-step approach. It prevents that cognitive overload for the AI.
Okay, so a key lesson there is to be mindful of how much information you're giving the AI at once.
For sure.
All right, so then we have experiment 3, where they introduce that chain of thought statement.
Überlege bitte schrittweise zu dem Ergebnis zu gelangen, along with all the combined prompts.
Right.
What happened there, and what can we take away from that experiment?
So in experiment 3, the AI did try to explain its information processing, which was interesting to see. It provided some background information similar to the first group in experiment 1, and then it delved into some more concrete content touching on aspects from the second group of the first experiment.
Okay.
And what was really interesting is that it actually included a statement that sounded almost apologetic, like it couldn't process more information, maybe due to limitations in the available data or the complexity of the request. So it's almost like the AI was acknowledging its own limitations.
Yeah, it's like it was showing its work.
That's really fascinating.
And then the final summary for the elementary school audience was very concise, just 5 points, which suggests that the earlier sections could serve as supporting details if you wanted to build on those points.
So it's like it gave you the gist and then hinted at more information if you needed it.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally we have experiment 4, where they use the other chain of thought statement. Gehe bitte schrittweise vor und erkläre deine Schritte. Again, with all the prompts combined, what happened there?
So in Experiment 4, we got a structured output similar to Experiment 1, again, with groups of 5 bullet points, so there's some consistency there.
Okay.
It also included specific details and even numbers in its response, but the tone felt less appropriate for an elementary school audience compared to the output of Experiment 1. And the reflection on the AI's thought process wasn't as prominent as in Experiment 3. So it seems that even those subtle changes in the chain of thought prompting can influence the AI's focus and the tone of the output.
So even the wording of the chain of thought prompt matters.
Yeah, and the article suggests that there might be a difference in how the AI interprets zu, which means in order to, versus und, which is and, in those two statements.
That's a really subtle nuance.
It is, and it shows how precise you need to be with these prompts to get the desired outcome.
Okay, so it's all about being deliberate and experimental with your prompting.
Absolutely.
So the key takeaway here is that these 6 steps defining the role, context, goal, constraints, audience, and output format, they really do provide a powerful foundation for getting better, more targeted results from AI. By thinking consciously about each of these elements, you're much more likely to get the output you need.
Couldn't agree more, and the article strongly encourages you, the listener, to actually experiment with each of these prompt components, try changing the role, the context, the target audience, and see how the responses change.
It's all about hands-on learning.
It really is, and that's the best way to master the art of prompting.
Absolutely. And there's this one final tip from the article that I thought was really clever. It suggests adding a prompt like, stelle mir zum Abschluss 5 Fragen, mit denen du das Ergebnis verbessern kannst. So basically, at the end, ask me 5 questions that would help you improve the result.
Yeah, that's a great way to engage the AI in a feedback loop. It's like you're getting it to help you refine your prompts.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it really turns the AI into a partner in that process.
absolutely.
Now, the article also touches on some more advanced techniques like creating custom GPTs with ChatGPT-4 or integrating the OpenAI API if you want to build your own AI-powered projects. And they'll be exploring those in their KI4eDo project, which sounds really interesting.
Yeah, there's always more to learn and explore as you become more comfortable and sophisticated with AI prompting.
Right. The 6 steps are like a springboard
A great analogy.
to more advanced interactions. And on a slightly more thought-provoking note, the article ends with a really intriguing observation. They noticed that in experiment 1, the AI seemed to show a degree of empathy when it was talking about the flooding events. It used phrases like, Leider sind auch Menschen gestorben, which means, unfortunately, people also died. And es ist wichtig, dass wir uns gegenseitig helfen, which means it is important that we help each other.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, then this brings up the whole concept of empathisch KI or empathetic AI.
Right.
which raises a really interesting question. Where does this apparent empathy come from? Is it just pattern recognition in the massive data sets that the AI has been trained on? Or is there something more nuanced at play?
A great question to ponder.
It really is, and it's something for you to think about as you continue exploring the world of AI. So hopefully this deep dive into these 6 steps of effective KI prompting has given you some actionable strategies to really unlock the potential of AI and get more precise and valuable outputs from those interactions.
For sure.
The key now is to take these insights and just start experimenting. And remember, the potential for really impressive results is definitely within your reach.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
And we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.
See ya.
This was BauVolution.
Where construction meets innovation. Until next time, keep building the future.